Hey everyone, welcome back to the Vibrant Life Source channel. I hope you're having a fabulous day and welcome back to another special Vibrant Chats. And today we're going on to the next episode of the Leveling Up Real Talk about Perimenopause with Jill and LeAnn. And just so you know, Jill is a trainer that I met, and her and I are diving in to the book by Dr. Stacy Sims, who is a PhD, and she specializes in female psychology and physiology and just about optimum performance, optimum health, and women working within their own bodies and their cycles. And so in this episode, we start diving into the book. We start diving into chapter 1 and really start expanding the conversation about what we are dealing with personally going through perimenopause. So let's keep the conversation going. Make sure that you comment down below about what you think of the episode, if you've purchased the book, what you think of the book, maybe what your own experience has been. And while you're there, please subscribe to my channel. Not only does it help me out, but you don't miss out on any further episodes. And also take a quick moment for a shameless plug for my new virtual platform. Bonk, right here, yeah. And what you can do on that platform, make sure you go there, check it out, because I got free recipes that I'm always trying, if I can, keep them up to date. So new recipes. If you want to schedule a free consultation with me for personal training, yoga, or for health and nutrition coaching, you can schedule that there. Or you can sign up for my new monthly membership, which is only $29 a month. You get a library of all kinds of fitness videos, yoga, meditation, nutrition, more coming in that monthly membership. And there's some things coming. Yeah, things are coming to the platform, so make sure you go check it out. All right, everyone, have a fabulous day. I'll see you back here, and I hope you enjoy the most special edition of Vibrant Chats. Hey, everyone, welcome back to Leveling Up, Real Talk about Perimenopause with LeAnn and
Jill.
I guess I should figure out what we're actually talking about.
We're talking about marrying something.
Marrying? So this is episode 2, and we are really diving into the book now.
Yeah. Did you all get it? Did you get your books?
I got my book. We're diving into part 1. So for
part
those
1
that got your book and that are going along with us, we're going to be getting into part 1, and we'll see how far we get today. This might end up kind of rolling into episode 3 too. So we'll kind of see it with this.
Because we got a lot to talk about.
We do. This is like the meat.
It's the meat.
What we would have talked about.
The meat and the potatoes.
Yes. Now, one thing I think we both agree that we are not going to focus, we're going to focus mainly on chapter 1, 2, and 3, not so much chapter 4. Even though we love talking about pregnancy and all of that.
Yeah. But that's not where we're at right now.
That's So we're going to,
we're a little beyond that.
Plus, we're focusing on the first 3 chapters of part 1.
Yeah.
But I think we should start with, what the heck are we talking about?
What are we talking about?
So I think you found a good quote about what's the big kahuna? What are we leading up to?
Yeah. So if you look at chapter 3, it's page 35. This quote, the very first line, really struck me. And it says, menopause, the point in life when you're no longer menstruating, was long regarded as simply the change, which implies just one change, the end of your menstrual periods, and in turn your reproductive life. And then she goes on to explain, well, no, it's really just a series of changes. Right. I remember as a kid hearing that, the change, and thinking like, oh yeah, that's it. It's just you no longer get your period, and you know,
Right.
like maybe that's a cool thing, right? Because your periods were terrible and, you know, you just can't wait for that. But it is so much more than just one change, right? It's like so many changes.
Well, and what she even says that these changes can happen years up to a decade.
Oh,
And
even more than
those
that,
changes
depending.
they're physical, they're psychological. These are things that shifts
That impact
the
everything you
female
do.
body, the female psyche, that it shifts who we are, our makeup.
So what's really super interesting to me is that it can be even longer than a decade, right? She says sometimes a decade, but the average woman in the United States goes through menopause at age 51. But these symptoms can start in your late 30s. So that's like, that's a long time, especially when no one knows, like they just think it's the end of your period. That's it. Right. And you don't even know you're in menopause, right? We've talked about that like it's a full year without your period. Well, so like you could have like no periods for like 11 months and 28 days. And then all of a sudden you get it and you're not in menopause. Like, oh, I'm still in perimenopause. Like what the heck is going on?
And so what we're talking about and where we're in is we're in that change. We're in that we're leading up to the big show.
Yes. Ooh. Like it's fun. The show.
And you know, I mean, because of our age, I mean, we're in our late 40s, we're close to that, you know.
Close, getting there.
Right. And so I think having that understanding, which we didn't touch on too much in episode 1, but of what are we talking about here, and and that's what we want to, I think for me, what was a lot of the takeaways I took from this part 1 was what is happening.
Yeah.
And how that relates to me as a coach and a trainer, but also how that relates to me as a female, you know,
just you.
Right. And you know, the first part, I mean, obviously her big saying is women are not small men. And the reason is, I mean, we have a cycle, we have a period, and we have estrogen. We don't have testosterone.
Right.
Because of that. And this was the part for me that was like, you know, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
That because of our cycle and our hormones, during our cycle, you might have to correct me on some of this, but there's moments in our cycle that we can do a workout. Doesn't matter what the workout is.
Right.
We're feeling it.
Yeah.
We feel strong. We've got the endurance, and we just feel
unstoppable.
Right. We can do the exact same workout a week later and feel like we got lead weights on us. That is not because we are
weak. Yeah.
It is because of where we could be in our cycle.
Yep. Absolutely.
I mean, my mind just went.
Yeah. Well, and what's crazy, I think, is it shouldn't be that mind-blowing, right? We shouldn't be in our 40s and going, oh, that's why I could do this much weight last time.
I mean, you probably did athletics in high school and maybe in college or something. And well, yeah. But I don't know about you, but I was taught at a young age through sports. You push through.
Yeah, you just
got to do it. You just got to do it. And it definitely, especially as I transitioned into becoming a coach and a trainer, not that I project that on my clients, but for myself, it's just like, suck it up, buttercup.
Yeah, just keep going. You'll be
and just be
work harder.
Totally. I was just going to say that. It's just like, come on, you did this last week. You killed it last week.
Yeah. Well, it's like, so in Dr. Stacy Sims's TED Talk, she talks about that, right? Being the athlete and how like some days they were doing crew, they're amazing. Like they're flying through the water and they're strong, they're in sync and everything is amazing. And then the next week they're all just like, you know, one's rowing this way. Like, I mean, that she doesn't say that, but that's the, you know, the implication is that they're off. And I know, I said it to you, I remember teaching a body pump class and coming up from like doing a chest track, and I'm going, oh my God, like looking to my participants going, wasn't that hard? And they're like, no, it was fine. Like, what's the matter? And I'm just like, oh my God, I can't even move my arms now. And I didn't know. I mean, this was 5 years ago, 3 years ago. I didn't know because
it affects, I mean, it affects our recovery. It affects, you know, I mean, you know, our diet. I mean, I am definitely one that always gets food cravings, the bloating, the whole thing. And, you know, not so much the vanity part of it, but just the, I just don't feel.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
and what she talks about that in Understanding Your Menstrual Cycle, like, why do we get so bloated? And I didn't know, I just knew, oh, I must be getting my period because I'm bloated.
That's what happens, right?
Right, like that's just how it goes. But in chapter 2, when she talks about the period, she talks about why. I think it's chapter 2.
Yeah, it's on page 21. Yeah, she talks about.
There you go. You maybe, yeah,
what's happening, and it's, you know, and when we talk about, you know, the athlete here, everyone's got an athlete. I don't care if you're just an avid walker or if you're just one that likes to do fitness classes, or if you like to go to do some type of hardcore activity. There's an athlete in all of us. And so all of this applies.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter what you're doing for your physical activity, because you're still having the same symptoms. You're still going through
exactly
this change.
The change. Well, and what's funny is, you know, I know obviously it's menopause is the change, but every month we are changing. Every week we are changing based on our cycle. And I'm sure you weren't taught that, like basic biology, right? Okay, women, you're going to ovulate, and then you're going to, if it's not fertilized, the egg doesn't get implanted, and now you're going to shit. And that's it. Like, not talking about hormone levels and how it impacts physically and emotionally and mentally and nutrition needs.
Right. And, you know, and I had mentioned that when I had gotten my partial hysterectomy, you know, post-surgery, I had asked, you know, so what about hormones? What about, and I forgot, I meant to bring up what I ended up taking. Next time I will. I'll try to bring it to episode 2 or episode 3, because when I finally got to a naturopath that actually was like, we need to check your hormone levels, and coming to find out that they were ridiculously low. And
not surprised.
It was a very simple shift. It's this, it's a herbal, basically it's maca root.
Okay, yeah.
I forget the name of the brand, but it is for perimenopausal symptoms. And you just take a capsule. They actually were having me take 2, but
you're that low.
And it worked, you know? And so, funny enough, since we've started talking over these last several weeks, I've just been like, I wonder, because I had gotten off it, because once everything got stabilized, I was like, I don't need to take it anymore. But, you know, I was like, you know, because I've had a lot of weight gain. Some of it I'm going to attribute to COVID, but some of it I really think
COVID-19.
I know, totally. But I think some of it totally is. And so I recently bought more of it. You can get it everywhere.
Yeah.
And
that maca root is like amazing. So
Yeah.
I've not tried it, but
But you
everything.
and this particular brand, it's not just maca root, it's got some other stuff in it, but you can get it at Whole Foods. I get it on Amazon. But anyway, it is, I recently started taking it a couple of weeks ago again. And I'm also really focusing on taking some things for gut health. Those are a couple of the things that I've been noticing a lot more. And dare I say, I've noticed a bit of a shift.
Good for you.
And so it's like, you know, I mean, obviously I'm more interested in more of a holistic, more of a natural approach, you know, and, you know, and one of the things I think I mentioned was, for me, since my hysterectomy, since I don't actually have a complete cycle, I don't have cues as to where I am in it. I don't know where I am in it. I never know.
Which is challenging, and it's not obviously when you have, you know, parts of your body removed that are producing hormones. Yes, that's taking away a signaler, right? Your hormones are signaling.
If I at least had the end of my cycle, then I would be like, oh, okay, now I can start to track, right?
Yes.
But I don't have that anymore. So I don't know when to start tracking. I don't have any cues. I don't have really any, but I have noted that I'm starting to have sporadic, weird PMS type symptoms.
So are you tracking that?
But they're all over the board. Like times of the month. So it's strange. But a couple months ago, I had hands down the worst that I have not probably had since I was in my 20s, the worst cramps.
Really? Wow.
And it lasted for like a day and a half.
That's really interesting.
It is. And it was so bad that I took ibuprofen, which, if anyone knows me, I don't do ibuprofen. I mean,
really?
I was dying.
Oh my gosh.
And then it just went away. And then I was like,
what the hell is happening? That's so strange.
The last time I probably had a premenstrual cramp, interesting enough, I was literally having my cycle the day I had my partial hysterectomy surgery. I was having cramps that week. And that was December of 2015.
Did you notice anything else during that time or after? Like the week after? Like, did you have night sweats or like trouble sleeping or?
No, see, I need to do a better job tracking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what you could use?
This is some of the things that, you know, yes, I don't have a period anymore, which, gotta say, don't miss that. But I have no clue what's, so the reminder about the hormones, the reminder about what's happening during that cycle.
Yeah.
Even though for me, chapter 2 was, how do I put this?
Chapter 2 was about mastering your menstrual cycle, for those not following along.
Right. Thank you. For me, that I don't have the visual, if you will.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I'm going blind right now. This was a great reminder, a great chapter for me to understand. I'm still going through it. I'm still going through the steps. I'm still going through the cycle. Even though I can't feel it, I can't see it, I don't know it's happening. It's still happening.
That is like the perfect I think the perfect metaphor, would it be a metaphor for the entire idea of when you hit your 30s and 40s and you're going into perimenopause, right? Like you don't know it's happening, but it is.
Right.
Like these changes are, I think the chapter 2 was a good reminder for me as well. Again, I don't remember learning any of this kind of stuff, right? It was
No,
basic,
definitely.
really basic. And but to
Right.
use it now as an adult to be like, oh, this is why, and it's, you know, this is why the week before my period, I'm just like, blah, like, I don't want to do anything. Like, I'm just kind of like, nah,
Mhm.
I'm just, oh, because I have high progesterone and that makes me want to just chill out. Like, that's, oh, all right, that makes sense. And then when you talk about like the week of your period, or, you know, whatever, days 1 through 14, when you're like, man, I'm a beast. I can do this any day. I'm gonna lift a car. I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna pull an airplane, whatever it is. Like it explains so much, right? Like, oh, like yeah,
It does.
you can go back and be like, well, why do I just feel so demotivated?
Right. And I read, the and the thing where I forget there's an actual not a theory, but there's an actual study that, so if you are around women, right, and we're all ovulating at the same time, that we start getting on each other's cycle, right?
Oh, yeah.
I forget there's a name for that.
I don't know what the name is, but I mean, think about
You know what I
college.
mean. You know what I mean,
Everybody,
right?
like, yeah, everybody in college on the same floor.
When you're in high school or in college and all of your girlfriends all of a sudden,
Yeah.
are like, oh, I'm on my period at the same time.
Like, oh, I can always ask so-and-so for update about her pad.
Yeah. And some I think are a little more susceptible and sensitive to it than others. Again, I wonder, obviously that still is happening to me, but I don't know it.
Yeah.
It's like, so I really look to this book, particularly those few chapters, right? Chapters 1 through 3. I look at these for me as where I need to learn to look for cues to what's happening in my body.
Thought about, because you don't do ibuprofen and you're much more holistic and natural, I wonder, because you have less toxins in your body, I wonder if you, well,
Theory.
in theory, right? In theory, like if you are more susceptible than to other people's cycles. Like, so if, because, like as somebody who is, or does it make you less susceptible? Like, it was just a thought. Like if you,
I wonder. I mean, let's be honest. Let's say you and I lived closer together. We saw each other all the time, right? So in theory, we would get, so then I could use you.
that's right. Well, it's so funny you talk about that. So over the last summer, we did like a little road trip to go visit my stepson, and it was my husband, me, my stepdaughter, my daughter, who doesn't have her period yet, but is at that age, and my husband's ex-wife. So there was like 4 women in this, and we were together for like, I don't know, 72 hours, like straight. And shortly thereafter, my cycle was like, I'm pretty consistent, but I was like 10 days late. And I was like, oh yeah, that was quite a nerve-wracking 10 days. But, and my husband said, well, we were just on this, like, we were just with all these ladies together. Maybe that. So imagine, like, yes. Okay. So
let's be grand. Well, but the majority of my clientele, my female clientele,
they're post-menopause.
Yeah. Or I do have a few that are in my age group. So
That doesn't help either, right?
Oh,
They're all perimenopausal too.
I know. So I need to hang out with a younger crowd so I can.
You just gotta find like, do you want to hang out with the millennials? Do you want to hang out with the Gen Z? What do you want to do?
I should put out an ad.
Yes, you'd be like, I need a group of
Hi, I just want to hang out so I can
Hang
go
out.
learn about my cycle.
my cycle to yours. They'll be like, okay.
It's like, we don't have to talk. We just got to hang out for a little bit.
You don't even have to talk to me. I'll just sit
I just
around.
have to hang out so I know what's happening with my cycle.
They're like, my God. Those Gen X women are so weird.
Those old ladies in their 40s.
Oh,
They're so weird. They're like, that must be what perimenopause does to you.
yes. You know what? And so one of the good things about, that is that you just don't even care anymore. You're like, I'm fine being weird. I'm totally down with being a weirdo.
Well, I think, obviously we can take a deeper dive, a lot of this section, she does talk a lot about, some of the case studies are like, female triathletes and,
Yep.
and marathoners and stuff. And, I think, and I looked at that, of course, with interest because, deep down, I'm a hardcore athlete.
You're a marathoner.
I'm a wannabe.
Triathlete. I am a wannabe mud runner. Like,
Right. Right. But I look at it as, I really was looking at this more as like looking for cues, of what I can be like, oh, well, because later in the book, she does talk about biohacking. Much later in the book. I mean, I actually think it's even in the appendix, but
yeah, like way back there.
I was looking at that and I was like, oh, well, maybe there's a way I could biohack.
Yeah. And figure out where your
right
levels
are. And for
are.
people that don't know what biohacking is basically, how does one describe biohacking? So basically it is, you are using different tracking mechanisms to understand what's going on with your body. For example, let's say you buy a glucose testing machine and you test your glucose, or you buy the sticks to check your urine, or you can get the sticks to check for toxicity in your body or whatever. So there's all different tracking mechanisms.
Yeah. I wonder
if there's one to track your estrogen level to see where you are.
That's what I was just gonna say. There is like different.
It's like one mind.
I know. Amazing. It only takes two of us to have one mind.
It takes two of us to actually come up with one idea.
So what I was gonna say is there are at-home tests, and I actually am doing one right now. Everly Well is the one that I'm using, and it, like, you do on the first day, or what is it, day 3 and day 3 to day 5, you do like a finger prick and you do blood drops, and then on day 19, so the one that I'm doing is a women's health, and it measures the 3 types of estrogen, I think 3 types of estrogen, follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, and cortisol, testosterone, progesterone. So the one that I'm doing is you do it through the whole cycle. So day 3 to day 5, I think you do the finger prick and the blood. Day 19 to 21, you do the finger pricks again and saliva. You have to do the saliva like 4 times a day because that's where it's measuring cortisol at that point. Okay. So I wonder
but you have to know where you are.
But I think there's one that's just to tell whether you're in perimenopause. And I believe if you don't have, like, there's protocols, if you're on the birth control pill, if you're not getting your period, if you don't know when your cycle, I believe there's protocols for that. Interesting. The other thing is, and it's obviously really expensive, it's like $700 or something, the Dutch test, which is like 30 dried urine, something. I don't remember what the other letters stand for.
Yeah.
But that's something that like, it's like a 30-day test though. Like you have to like check your urine like 4 times a day, and they measure all kinds of stuff.
Right. I'll have to get the information as to where you got your kit, and look, stay tuned. I may actually learn what's happening with my cycle.
You might find out. Well, I'm certainly going to find out what's going to happen where I'm at.
Right.
The reason is because
that'd be nice to know.
Yeah. Well, mine.
It would be very helpful for me to know what is day 1, what's day 14. I mean,
right.
One would say, well, when do you have more energy? When do you feel lower energy?
Yeah, but that doesn't.
That's a hard.
When you're in perimenopause, that doesn't help.
No, really it doesn't, because, and also, and this is me personally, I think there's too many other parameters and factors that come into it.
Absolutely.
That what other things are going on with you physically? What's going on with you environmentally? What's going on with your stress level, with work?
Exactly.
Right now I'm in the thick of seasonal allergies, and life sucks for me right now. And so there's so many factors that play into it that, but this was a good reminder, and this was actually not even a reminder. This was a good scientific education of what is actually happening. And chapter 2, people, for me, was presented in a way that I'm like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Chapter 3, yes, I read chapter 3, but I really kept coming back to chapter 2, because chapter 3, I'm kind of like, I'm just not there yet. I'm getting there.
We're getting there, right? And she does talk about, how things are changing, how your body composition is shifting as your hormones are dropping. So I think but it's not something, I guess that's something that because we know that, we're like, I can see that. I can just look at, I can just look down and go, yeah, there it is. Body composition.
Gravity's not in my favor anymore.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm aware.
One of the titles of the section is "Sound sleep can be fleeting." Like, I didn't need you to tell me that. Like, I figured that one out.
Got the memo.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree. I think that chapter 2, well, for somebody who's still getting her cycle and is working with women who are still getting their cycle, it was very educational, very, I don't know if it was, yes, eye-opening, but not necessarily, like, it's just sort of like, oh, click. That makes sense. Like, oh, this is why sometimes, oh, I was doing 15-pound dumbbells last week, but now I have to go to 12 or 10 today because it goes. So I feel like that education makes me as a coach better, because I can adapt for my clients. Like, oh, and as a coach and a trainer, that you have a very intimate knowledge of your clients' bodies, and they feel free to talk to you, right? So like, it's not, and I sort of feel like, especially after all of this, asking a question like, well, where are you in your cycle? It doesn't have that same sort of stigma,
right,
that it used to. Like, and I'll explain, like, the reason I'm asking is because blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And, if you're going to get your period, or if you're leading up to it, well, now maybe we need to do a little yoga, or some foam rolling, or whatever it might be, versus I'm going to have you go high intensity.
Right.
And I think that chapter 2, she talks of she really gets you those first line. Chapter 2 starts with, women have a long history of being shamed into silence about their periods. Even if it's not directly stated, the underlying message is it's not something you talk about.
Right.
And I think that's BS. Like at this point,
and it's not, well, and I think women are made to feel that using your cycle, that women use their cycle as an excuse.
Yeah.
It's not an excuse. It's just
the way it is.
What's happening.
Yeah.
And you know, I think, I mean, and for me, I realize by reading this book, by going through this process that you and I are going through, that I took, prior to my surgery, I took that process of my cycle for granted.
Sure. Well, now that you don't have it, right?
What I, and prior to my surgery, I did read a lot up on Christine Northrup books, but what I didn't realize what was going to happen post was not having that physical part of it, not having this, the same cycle, how much I took it for granted, that I didn't, how much I don't understand, and how much I was going by what I could physically see happening. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And now it's almost like I'm more aware of it, or I want to be more aware of it.
What were your cycles like before? Were they heavy? Were they long?
Boring. I know I was pretty boring. I mean, I was very consistent about, I was lucky, 3-5 days max. Very, PMS symptoms manageable, if none. About a year and a half before my surgery, I started having irregular cycles. And by that time I was off, I went off the pill because I didn't want to take it anymore. I had, I've been reading a lot. And so I went off the pill in my late 30s. Because I was just like, I don't want to take synthetic crapola in my body. But
well, now, you live and you learn.
Right. And so I started having irregular cycles where it would last longer, or it would come twice a month, a little bit here, a little bit there. It would be shorter cycles, longer cycles. So finally I mentioned it to my doctor, which I wasn't seeing an OBGYN. I was just going to a nurse practitioner. And she's like, oh, she goes, well, let's get you on the pill to regulate it. And we'll regulate. And then we'll do a low dose. And I'm like, well, that just angered it. Well, the pill just angered it. The pill just pissed everything off. It really didn't do anything. It didn't really help. And so then I came back and I'm like, yeah, no. And just off the chance, her and I were talking, and this was a nurse practitioner that, her and I had a very good relationship. And she's like, she goes, for giggles, let's send you in for an ultrasound. For giggles.
Just to see what happens.
I'm like, all right, whatevs.
Well, but so like
sure enough, that's when they found the fibroids.
Well, and that's the thing, like, let's just regulate your cycle as opposed to let's figure out right off the bat why this is happening. And that's something that, like, I'm trying to focus on a lot with the women that I'm working with. Like, okay, I understand you're having this really terrible time with your period. Why, like, what's going on? Like, let's figure out, you're having these long periods, you're completely depressed, you can't get out of bed when you're getting that's your body telling you something, not like, and it's not, I need to be on the pill, because that's not
Not an answer.
like, and I shouldn't say it that way.
Well,
Some
it's
people
yeah.
might need to be on the pill. They might. I get that. But my point is, it shouldn't
Sorry.
be the first. It should. I don't think, as somebody who is trying to be as natural as possible and allow
Mhm.
my body to go through what it's going through, I don't feel like it's a smart thing to just, well, let's just regulate, which basically means let's just silence it, right?
Well, that's the same approach as doing a hysterectomy.
Right. Like,
Right.
well, I mean, you said your doctor was like, I fixed it.
And I'm fortunate that the nurse practitioner came back. I came back 6 months later, and I'm like, I may have even been sooner. And she's like, let's just, for fun, let's just send you in for an ultrasound. Right. And then that started that
yeah.
process.
Well, and I think it's unfortunate that it took 6 months, but at least at 6 months, it wasn't like just stay on the pill and stop whining about it, you know, stop.
And I honestly think if it had been anyone else, I don't know, but I think her knowing that I wasn't someone that was going to take no for an answer or was going to be, you know, she's like, okay, let's send you in for an ultrasound. I'm like, good. I like that. Let's go.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I mean, we've talked about that, and we've talked about being dismissed, like, and in chapter 2, she says, even when we do speak up, we're often more or less dismissed.
Right.
Like, what? Don't you, like, haven't you lived in your body? Like, even,
even that's what we coach to women. You know your body better than
you know your body. Even my 12-year-old knows when she's feeling weird. Like, you know, she doesn't know what exactly, but she knows she's not feeling like herself. Like, so I hope that one of the things I hope for what we're doing is that it empowers women to listen to their bodies. It empowers them to track what's going on and to, like you said, not take no for an answer. Like this,
basically become their own advocate.
Absolutely.
And realize that what is happening, don't dismiss it. Just because your doctor or your family or your friends are dismissing it doesn't mean that you are invalid.
And the other thing is, just because it's normal or your labs are normal or in range or it's part of being, it's right. Like, I was told, well, yeah, you're gaining weight because you're just getting older. Like, well, why is that part of getting older? Why is that? Why do I have to accept feeling like crap?
Right.
Instead of, you know, well, let's figure out why you're feeling like, why you're not sleeping, why you can't remember, you know, can't remember anything, and why, you know, you just all those things that we talked about with perimenopause, the brain fog and the difficulty concentrating and the, you know, lack of libido, and like, that's not a cool thing. Like, that's not cool. Like, women shouldn't have to deal with it.
Right. So I'm thinking, shall we wrap up here? And I'm thinking episode 3, we may touch a little bit more on chapter 3.
I think that's a good idea.
And then we'll start diving into part 2.
Yeah.
So
I think that makes sense. Right? We talked about what's the show, the big thing, the big change.
So now we need to talk about, you know, what
that middle part.
Yeah. So so in episode 3, so everyone, here's our homework. Here's all of our homework. We'll do chapter 3 and then start diving into part 2.
Yes, which is all about like the
and again, and just so we know, there'll probably be parts of part 2 that we'll touch on more and others not so much.
And I think it's I think people can get a lot out of, well, you know, as we age, our exercise needs to change and our food intake and that kind of stuff. So there's some.
So we'll get into that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That's episode 4. No, yeah,
3.
4. Episode 4, we'll get into that stuff.
Oh, right.
3, we'll talk about perimenopause,
And then we'll start getting into part 3.
which is not even a word, right?
No.
So cute. Like,
Oh, all right. Well, good to see you.
you too.
All right, everyone.
Homework, chapter
Onward.
3.
Yeah. All right, everyone. We'll see you.
Yeah, we'll see you next episode.
All right.